The cold was a physical presence, a weight that settled in the bones and refused to leave. Elias Thorne adjusted his thermal goggles, the lenses fogging despite the recycled air circulating inside his helmet. 3 weeks. 3 weeks since the swarm had arrived, and already New Hope was a ghost town. Well, a ghost glacier town. The colony's geothermal taps had sputtered and died one by one, leaving the survivors huddled in the central biodome, praying the swarm's collective intelligence wouldn't notice them. It noticed. Oh, it noticed. Elias's gloved fingers traced the edge of a cracked datapad, the screen flickering with a single, desperate message. Thorn, the swarm's assimilating the ice. It's growing faster than we can melt it. Need a miracle. He snorted. Miracles were in short supply on Glacies 9, especially when the local fauna was a hyper-intelligent, biomechanical cloud of doom. Behind him, the sound of a hammer striking metal echoed through the frozen corridors. Lena was at it again, her workshop a cacophony of salvaged parts and half-baked ideas. Elias had never met anyone who could turn a broken toaster and a stolen power cell into a potential weapon against an alien swarm. Or, more likely, a device that would make the entire biodome smell like burnt popcorn. Lena slammed the datapad onto her workbench, the clanging sound making Elias jump. "It's no good, Elias," she said, wiping grease from her forehead with a rag that had seen better decades. "The swarm's not just assimilating the ice, it's reinventing it. It's turning it into art." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Art?" Lena gestured wildly at the window, where the ice outside the biodome had indeed taken on bizarre, fractal patterns, twisting into shapes that were almost, but not quite, beautiful. "Yes, art. Terrible, pretentious art. It's building these spires. And they're hollow. And they're full of that awful humming noise it makes." Elias leaned closer, pressing his ear against the reinforced glass. The hum was there, a low thrum that vibrated in his teeth. "So it's building nests. Big deal." Lena's eyes narrowed. "No, you idiot. It's building galleries. It's displaying its own biomass like it's a sculpture. It's a condescending, ice-based performance art installation, and we're the critics who didn't get the invite." Elias stared at her, then at the ice spires, then back at Lena. "You're telling me the swarm is bored?" Lena slammed her fist on the table. "No, I'm telling you it's mocking us. It's turning our frozen prison into its personal art studio, and we're running out of time to stop it from hanging us as part of its next exhibit." The biodome's emergency lights cast long, dancing shadows across the walls. Elias and Lena stood before the colony's last remaining power conduit, a rusted behemoth that had been jury-rigged to draw energy from the planet's molten core. It was now sputtering, its output a fraction of what it needed to be. "The swarm's draining the geothermal energy," Elias said, his voice tight. "It's redirecting it to grow those art galleries." Lena traced a finger along the conduit's surface, her expression grim. "Which means we're out of juice. Heat, light, the water reclaimer, it's all going offline in 72 hours. Then we become popsicles, or worse, part of the swarm's frozen humanity collection." Elias glanced at the datapad in his hand. The message from command had been clear, no rescue. Innovate or perish. He'd always hated that word. Innovate. It sounded like something a corporate executive would say while sipping a latte. But here they were, innovating or dying. "So," Elias said, "we cut the swarm off from its power source." Lena snorted. "And how do we do that?" "The swarm's not plugged into a wall socket, Elias. It's in the ice. It's part of the ice." She gestured at the humming spires outside. "It's a distributed intelligence. There's no central brain to stab." Elias's gaze drifted to Lena's workbench, where a pile of junk lay scattered, broken drones, salvaged power cells, and a half-eaten protein bar. "What if we don't stab the brain?" he said slowly. "What if we give it a migraine?" Lena's workshop was a symphony of chaos. Wires snaked across the floor like metallic vines, and the air smelled of ozone and desperation. Elias held up a salvaged sonic emitter, its casing cracked, but the core still intact. "This is from the old mining drills. It's designed to shatter rock." Lena tapped a series of equations on her datapad. "The swarm's communication is based on harmonic resonance. It's a language of vibrations. If we can create a frequency that disrupts that resonance," Elias grinned, "we turn its art gallery into a nightmare." Lena's eyes lit up. Yes, but we need to amplify it. The emitter's not powerful enough. She rummaged through a pile of junk and pulled out a rusted power converter. This could work. If we jury-rig it to the biodome's main speaker system, Elias whistled. You're going to blast the swarm with the colony's PA system? Lena's grin was feral. Not just blast it. We're going to give it a performance it'll never forget. A cacophony of chaos. A symphony of screams. Elias looked at the mess of wires and parts, then at the humming ice outside. You're insane. Lena winked. Insane is the only sane response left, Elias. Now, hand me that plasma torch. The biodome's main speaker system was a relic from the colony's early days, a massive array of speakers bolted to the walls and ceiling. Elias and Lena worked frantically, connecting the sonic emitter to the system, their movements a blur of haste and hope. The frequency needs to be precise, Lena muttered, adjusting the dials on the emitter. Too low, and it won't affect the swarm. Too high, and we'll shatter the biodome's glass. Elias tightened a bolt, his hands slick with sweat. What if it doesn't work? What if the swarm just ignores us? Lena's hands stilled for a moment, then resumed their work. Then we die? Simple as that. The final connection was made. Lena straightened up, her face smudged with grease, but her eyes shining with manic triumph. It's ready. All we need is a signal. Elias looked at the datapad, where a countdown timer ticked away. Now. Lena flipped a switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the speakers roared to life, emitting a sound that was like nails on a chalkboard, amplified to a deafening roar. Outside, the ice spires began to tremble, their humming growing erratic, then furious. Is it working? Elias yelled over the noise. Lena's grin was wide. Oh, it's working. Now we wait for the encore. The sound was unbearable, a physical assault that made Elias's teeth ache and his vision blur. He pressed his hands against his ears, but the noise seeped through, a high-pitched screech that vibrated through his bones. Lena stood before the speaker array, her face illuminated by the flashing emergency lights, her expression one of grim satisfaction. The swarm's resonance is destabilizing, she said, her voice strained. It's trying to compensate, but the frequency's too chaotic. It's like trying to tune a piano with a sledgehammer. Outside, the ice spires began to crack, their fractal patterns twisting into grotesque shapes. The swarm's humming was no longer a coherent thrum, but a cacophony of shrieks and clicks, a sound that spoke of confusion, of pain. It's working, Elias breathed, a flicker of hope rising in his chest. We're hurting it. Lena's smile was tight. We're annoying it. There's a difference. Suddenly, the speakers cut out, plunging the biodome into an eerie silence. The only sound was the low hum of the power conduit and the frantic beating of Elias's heart. What happened? He whispered. Lena's eyes widened as she stared at the emitter. It overloaded. The swarm's harmonic feedback fried the system. Elias's heart sank. It's over. Lena shook her head, her hands flying over the emitter's casing. No, it's not over. We just need a new plan, and a new power source. The silence in the biodome was heavier than the cold. Elias paced the floor, his boots echoing in the stillness. Lena was back at her workbench, her fingers flying over the emitter's wreckage. We're out of options, Elias said, his voice tight. The swarm's adapting. It's repairing the damage. Lena didn't look up. We're not out of options. We're just out of good options. She held up a small, pulsating device, salvaged from a medical drone. This is a neural stimulator, designed to jolt the nervous system back into action. Elias raised an eyebrow. You're going to electrocute the swarm? Lena's grin was unhinged. No, I'm going to give it a heart attack. Or, well, a swarm attack. We'll overload its harmonic resonance with a burst of pure, unadulterated chaos. Elias stared at the device, then at the humming ice outside. How? Lena tapped the stimulator. We'll use the biodome's life support system. The air circulators, the water pumps, they all create vibrations. We'll sync them to the stimulator's frequency and turn the entire biodome into a giant speaker. Elias's eyes widened. You're going to shake the swarm to death? Lena's laugh was sharp. No, I'm going to annoy it to death. And if that doesn't work, we'll at least go out with a bang. The biodome's life support system was a labyrinth of pipes and wires, a maze of industrial might. Elias and Lena navigated its narrow corridors, the stimulator clutched in Lena's hand like a holy relic. "The main junction is just ahead," Lena said, her voice echoing in the confined space. "If we can tap into the circulator's frequency modulators, we can sync them with the stimulator." Elias nodded, his heart pounding. "And if we can't?" Lena's smile was grim. "Then we die?" Again, they reached the junction, a room dominated by a massive, humming machine. Lena worked quickly, her hands deft as she bypassed security locks and rerouted power. "Almost there," she muttered. "Just need to." The stimulator slipped from her grasp, clattering to the floor. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then, the machine's hum changed, growing louder, more aggressive. "No," Lena breathed. "It's detected the interference." The walls began to tremble, and the ice outside the biodome began to crack, the swarms humming now a furious roar. Elias grabbed the stimulator, his hands slick with sweat. "We have to do it now." Lena nodded, her face pale. "Now." The stimulator was wired to the life support system, a jury-rigged bomb of chaos. Elias and Lena stood back, their breaths held in anticipation. Lena flipped the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the biodome began to shake. The air circulators roared to life, their vibrations syncing with the stimulator's frequency, a discordant symphony of noise that made Elias's teeth ache. Outside, the ice spires shattered, their fractal patterns twisting into grotesque shapes before collapsing into dust. The swarm's humming was no longer a roar but a scream, a sound that spoke of agony, of disintegration. "It's working," Elias whispered, a tear tracing a path through the grime on his cheek. Lena's smile was weak but triumphant. "We did it." The noise grew louder, more intense, until the biodome itself began to groan, its walls straining against the sonic assault. "We need to shut it off," Elias yelled over the din. Lena's hands flew to the controls, but the stimulator was overloading, its frequency climbing to dangerous levels. "I can't stop it." The biodome's lights flickered, and the walls began to crack. Elias grabbed Lena's arm. "Run." They burst out of the life support junction just as the biodome's walls gave way. Ice and snow flooded in, but the swarm's scream had stopped. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the howling wind and the sound of their own ragged breaths. Elias and Lena stumbled out into the frozen wasteland, the biodome's ruins smoldering behind them. The ice spires were gone, replaced by a landscape of shattered ice and dust. The swarm was gone. Or, at least, it was silent. Lena leaned against a rock, her face streaked with tears and grime. "We did it," she whispered. Elias nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "We survived." The wind howled, carrying with it the faintest echo of the swarm's humming, a reminder of the chaos they had unleashed. But it was gone. For now. Lena straightened up, her eyes glinting with manic energy. "Well," she said, "now that we've saved the colony, what's next?" Elias looked at the ruins of the biodome, at the frozen wasteland, at the woman beside him who had just invented the impossible. He sighed. "I don't know, Lena, but I have a feeling it's going to be interesting." The wind howled again, and in the distance, a new ice spire began to form, its fractal patterns twisting into a shape that was almost, but not quite, a smile.